Hi, you like my sweater? Thank you, I made it myself. That could be you. Welcome back to my channel. My name's Romy and I like to crochet, read, and I've also started knitting. In this video, you're going to learn how to make this simple raglan sweater, super beginner friendly, and you can use any yarn or any hook that you have and make any size, as big or as small as you want it to be. I hope you enjoy. The materials you will need to make your sweater are firstly your yarn. For myself, I used 400 grams of this DK weight 8-ply yarn, and this turned out to make a cropped sweater for my body size, which is about an Australian 16 to 18. And the amount you'll need for yourself will vary largely due to the yarn weight that you use and the size that you want your sweater. I would suggest buying or making sure that you have enough to make your size, otherwise you might run out or end up with a very cropped sweater. You can use any yarn weight you like, or you could even use stsc or scrap yarn. It just depends on your preference. Just make sure that you use a corresponding hook. So the next thing you need will be your hook. I used a 5mm, and if you're unsure about which hook size to use, I would recommend using the size indicated on the yarn label. Or what I did was make a few swatches with different hook sizes, and then I picked the one that I liked the best. So if you want your fabric to be tighter, use a smaller hook. If you want your fabric to be more airy and mesh-like, then use a larger hook. You get the idea. Just pick a hook that will create the look that you desire. You will also need some stitch markers. I have actual stitch markers here, but you could also just use something like earrings or a scrap piece of yarn if you don't have stitch markers. And then just some scissors or something else to cut your yarn with. So before we get started, you need to pick a stitch. I use double crochet because this is my favorite stitch. I think it's fun and it also creates a somewhat solid yet still breathable fabric. You can use any stitch you like. I would suggest single if you want a more solid fabric, or double or triple if you want a more airy light fabric. You could also use alternate rows of different stitches if you want a more unique stitch pattern. It is entirely up to you. So when I use double crochet, I like to start using foundation double crochet. This is a technique that I recently learned and I love it. So it is a bit tricky at the start, but once you get the hang of it, it is fine. And it eliminates the need to crochet into a foundation chain, which I find quite tedious and annoying. And it is easy to add or take away stitches if you mess up your counting, which I feel like is quite common in that foundation chain, especially when you are first starting out. So I will show you how to do that foundation double crochet. If you aren't comfortable with it, you could simply do a foundation chain and then crochet into this, as you are probably used to if you are a beginner or just starting out. I will also link a tutorial in case I haven't explained it clear enough. So we're going to start by tying a slip knot and then chaining 3. You're then going to yarn over and insert into that first chain, pull through, pull through 1 loop, pull through 2, and then pull through 2 again. Again, yarn over, I'm going to insert into that bottom V. You can see my thumb is pointing to it. Insert through both loops. Pull through 1, then pull through 2, and pull through 2 again. So as you can see on the bottom there, we've essentially created the chain and then the double crochets on the top. I'll just show you one more time. So we're going to yarn over, insert into that bottom V, pull through 1, pull through 2, and then pull through 2 again. If you can't figure out or see where to insert into that bottom V, I would suggest stretching your work out. It just makes the stitches a bit more defined, a bit more easier to see than when it is all bunched up. This took me a few practices to learn at the start, but once you get the hang of it, it is very good. So you can see that foundation double crochet there. We've got the chains on the bottom and then the double crochets on the top. So you're going to continue to make this row until it is long enough to fit around your neck. This row is essentially the neckline of your sweater, so if you want your neckline to be larger, make it larger, or if you want it to be smaller, make it smaller. You'll also want to try it on just by wrapping it around your neck, making sure that it is the size that you want it to be, but also make sure that it can fit around your head. I like my necklines to be on the smaller side, so this is what mine ended up looking like. Once you've tried it on, you will need to count how many stitches you've made in this foundation row. So in order to make the increases and shape the sweater, we need to do a bit of math to make sure that our sweater turns out correctly. So essentially, the number of stitches needs to be divisible by 6. If your stitch count is not divisible by 6, you will need to add or frog your row to make the number divisible by 6. You just use your calculator, see if it is correct. We are then going to connect this in the round. So firstly, make sure that your piece is not twisted when you do this. Make sure that those double crochets are on the outside, and then we are going to slip stitch into the first double crochet, in this case just the first stitch. Make sure you don't go into the second one, ensure that you go into the first one, which is next to that. Just connect these by a simple slip stitch, as you can see. You should now be able to lay your piece flat, and it should look something like this. We're now going to add in our stitch markers. So to start, these are the basic components of a raglan sweater. We've got the seam at the back, and then the 2 sides and the front. The sides are of equal length, as are the front and the back. So going back to your maths, your stitch count should be divisible by 6. So in my case, I had 54 stitches, so 54 divided by 6 equals 9. So we're going to use that number to mark out our sweater. So in my case, I've got 9 stitches at the back left, back right, and each of the sides. The front is 2 by 9, which is 18 stitches. So we're now going to count out our stitches and add our stitch markers. And we're also going to make sure that on each of the sides we've got that number of stitches, so 9 for me, in between the markers. So we're going to start from that slip stitch, so the back seam, and count 9 in my case, and put a marker in that 9th stitch. I'm then going to count 9, not including the marker stitch. And put another marker in the stitch after. So I've got 9 stitches in between the markers. And I'm just going to do the same thing on the other side, again starting from that middle seam, counting 9 and putting a marker in the 9th stitch. Again, counting 9 in between, so not including the marker, and then putting a marker in the stitch after, so that I've got 9 stitches in between those 2 stitch markers. So it should look something like this, and I would recommend counting your stitches again just to make sure that you've got your counting correct and you've got that number of stitches in between those markers on the sides, and also the back and the front should have an equal amount. This is me just double checking my counting, because if you do make a mistake here, it is difficult to fix later, you essentially have to go back and frog all of your work, so make sure you count your stitches at this step. We are now going to continue working on our piece now that we've got our stitch count sorted. So as I'm doing double crochet, I like to start my rounds with a stitch called stacked single crochet. So you do a single crochet in the first stitch, and then you do a second single crochet on top going into that left front loop. Alternatively, you could do a chain 2 and then double crochet into the same stitch. I just prefer to start my rows with this as it looks a bit neater. It is entirely up to you. So as I'm doing double crochet, I'm just going to double crochet until I reach that stitch marker. You will just do whatever stitch you are using. So now that I have reached my first stitch marker, I'm first going to remove it, and then I'm going to double crochet as I would usually. I'm then going to chain 1 and do another double crochet into the same stitch. So this is how we are going to do our increases for the entirety of the sweater. As you can see there, I've got double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in the same stitch. And I like to add my stitch marker back onto the top so I can keep track of where I'm going to do my increase in the next round. We're going to repeat this for the entire round, so I'm just going to continue double crocheting again until I reach the next stitch marker. When I reach that second marker, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take it out, and then I will do a double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet again in the same stitch. And as you can see, we've got our increase there. So you're going to continue going in the round until you reach the back seam. When you have completed the round, you are again going to slip stitch into the first stitch of the round. In my case, this was the stacked single crochet. As you can see, we have completed our second round and it should look something like this. And you can see the shape of the raglan starting to grow. This row is going to be essentially the same, so I'm again doing a stacked single crochet to start. Alternatively, you could do a chain 2 and then a double crochet into the same stitch. I'm then going to double crochet until I reach my stitch marker. So when you reach your stitch marker, you are going to remove it, and then you're going to double crochet into that space of the increase. Chain 1, and then another double crochet into that space. And when you continue the row, make sure you don't miss the next double crochet. It is a bit hidden, so make sure you don't miss that one. Again, we're going to continue this for the entire round, doing the same thing. I tend to leave out my stitch markers at this point because I can easily see where the increase spaces are, but that is entirely up to you. If you need the stitch markers to help, then that's completely fine. So I've just completed my last double crochet of the round, and I'm again going to slip stitch into the first stitch of the row. Again, I will show you. It is a bit easy to miss, so. And you are going to repeat this row until your piece gets a lot bigger. I would suggest you try it on every 4, 5, 6 rounds just to see how it is progressing and fitting you. So you're going to continue until your piece looks something like this. You want the front corners to reach your armpits or below, where you would be comfortable starting the sleeves and body. In my case, I wanted the sleeves to be a bit baggy, so this is what it ended up looking like. You can also adjust the neckline, so I like my neckline to have more space at the front than the back, so this is how I would like it to sit. And if the back is shorter, then don't worry, we will be working on this next. So this is when I moved on to the next step. So when you get to this point, you're going to slip stitch to finish the round as you would usually. And then we are going to fasten off by chaining 1, cutting the yarn, and then pulling through. We can also pull on this to tighten. So next we are going to continue working the back. So this is the back of my piece. So far you can see the seam going down the middle. And we are going to slip knot as usual. And I'm going to connect my yarn into the back right corner, into the increased space. We're just going to join by slip stitching. So I'm going to stacked single crochet into this space. You could also alternatively chain 2 and then double crochet. I'm then going to double crochet into the next stitch and then all the way along until I reach the other back corner. When you reach your seam of stacked single crochet or chains in the middle, make sure you don't accidentally increase. So we're going to do 1 stitch on the right, and then make sure you don't accidentally add a stitch, so just double crochet into the next double crochet. I also like to weave my ends in as I go. This is completely optional, but I find it makes the piece a lot less overwhelming at the end when I don't have as many ends to weave in. When you reach the end, you're going to do 1 more double crochet into that corner space. As you can see, we have added 1 row of length so far to the back piece, and we are going to continue going back and forth until our piece is the same length on the front and the back when the neckline is sitting as we want it to. So I'm going to turn my work, do a stacked single crochet or a chain 2 and double crochet, and then again double crocheting all the way across. And we're going to do this back and forth and continue trying our piece on until it is looking the way that we want it to. I ended up doing 5 rows, and this is what that looked like. So when we fold it correctly, it looks like this from the front. And you can see the neckline there is sitting nicely. So this is what it looked like tried on, and you can see that the front and the back essentially match up. We're going to do the armholes next. Don't worry if your pieces don't touch, we can add some length in between them. So we are now going to connect the back to the front to make the armholes. So if your piece is large enough at this point, you can slip stitch it immediately, or what I like to do is chain about 5 to 10 and then slip stitch into the front, and this makes the armhole and the body that little bit bigger, and it just makes the fit a bit nicer in my opinion, but this is entirely up to you. I would suggest trying 5 or 10 and then trying it on and seeing how you like the fit. In my case, I ended up doing 10 chains, trying it on, and then I didn't really like it, so I did 12, and this ended up being perfect for me. So as you can see, I have just chained my amount, and I'm going to slip stitch into the front corner of the same side, into that corner space. So this is what it looked like tried on. You can see the armhole is a bit bigger now, and this will result in a baggier, more oversized sleeve. You can adjust this to your liking, of course. When you are happy with your sleeve, you're going to fasten off. You can see the size of the sleeve here. And then we are going to do the same on the other side. I'm going to slip stitch into the back corner stitch, chain 12, make sure you do the same number on both sides, and then slip stitch into that front corner stitch. So you can see we've got both of our armholes now, and I again tried it on to see how it was fitting, and this is what it was looking like. I then started to work on my sleeves, so I prefer to start working on the sleeves first rather than the body when I have a limited amount of yarn, which was the case with this, because I do both of the sleeves and then I just use whatever I have left to finish off the body. But if you would prefer to do the body first, that is entirely up to you. That is just my suggestion if you are wanting to use up all your yarn or you have a limited amount. So as I worked 12 chains in between the front and the back, I'm going to start by working 6, so half the amount, around the starting chain. So I'm starting in approximately the middle because I want the seam to be hidden going down the inside in the middle. So I attach using a slip stitch, and then I am single crocheting around the chains. I believe this looks neater, but if you prefer, you can simply single crochet straight into the chains. So I've got my 6 single crochets here. You can also slide them over the chain if they're not in the correct position. That's what I did here. And I'm now going to double crochet into the corner stitch, the corner space. After that, I'm going to double crochet in all the stitches around the arm. When you reach the other corner space, make sure you don't miss the stitch next to it, and then do another double crochet into that corner space. So I'm now up to the portion where I was doing rows back and forth on the back. So there are no specific stitches to crochet into here, so you're just going to make sure that you do 2 stitches into the side of those double crochets, or if you're doing single crochet, do 1, etc. So there's no specific spot to put these stitches, just do what feels right and make sure they are spread out enough to cover the area. Now I'm up to the chain area again. I'm going to single crochet 6, or whatever half the number was for you, around those chains. You are then going to connect to that first single crochet using a slip stitch, and just make sure that these single crochet aren't twisted when you connect them. So once you get to this point, we are just going to be working in the round. So I'm starting with a stacked single crochet, or you could do a chain 2 and double crochet. I'm then going to double crochet all the way around and connect with a slip stitch, and essentially you just repeat that and continue to try on your piece until the sleeves are the length that you want them to be. I just did my sleeves straight, so I just continued the same round over and over again, but if you wish, you could do some decreasing to make it more tapered. I would suggest one decrease every second round would probably get you a nice shape, but again, this is entirely up to you. You can shape the sleeves however you want, or you could even make them flared if that's the way you prefer. So once you've finished this sleeve, you're going to make the other one the exact same way, and I would suggest you count the number of rows you did so that they are symmetrical. So we've now completed the sleeves and we're up to the body. You could also stop at this point if you wanted a bolero sort of shape, but I'm going to continue giving it some length. So this is essentially worked in the round the same as the sleeves. So we're going to connect by slip stitching in one of the sleeves in the middle so that we can hide the seam down the side. This will be the bottom of the single crochets, so you can just crochet into the gaps below the stitches. Just make sure that you do 6 at the start of the row and then 6 at the end of the row, or however many you need to do to make that the same number that you did originally between the back and the front. So again, I'm doing a stacked single crochet. Alternatively, you could do a chain 2 and then a double crochet in the same stitch. So including that stacked single crochet, I'm going to make sure that I do 6 double crochets on that inner sleeve area to make sure I have the same number of stitches. So I'm going to then double crochet into that corner space and then continue to work double crochets all the way around until I reach the other side and then the chain inner sleeve area. And don't forget to double crochet into those 4 corners. And you are just going to continue working in the round until your sweater is of the desired length, or in my case, I ran out of yarn. I decided to stick simple with mine and just work in the round with no shaping, but again, this is customizable. If you want to add some increases or decreases for your bust or waist, for example, you could do so, but I was going for a more straight cut look in this case. This is what my finished sweater ended up looking like. Pre-blocking, the blocking definitely gave it a bit more length and made it a bit more drapey, which is nice. I thought I would show you how to wet block in case you aren't familiar with it. I'm sure there are many other more thorough tutorials, but this is just what I do. So I like to soak my piece in some warm water for about 20 minutes. If you have wool wash, then use that. I don't. I also don't have a bucket that isn't used for cleaning and that sort of thing, so I just use a big bowl, and I'm just making sure the piece is covered with water. I actually had to get some more water because it soaked up so much. Just let your piece sit, and then after those 20 minutes, squeeze out all the water, and I also like to roll it up in a towel, which helps squeeze out a lot more water. And if you have blocking mats, use those. I don't, so I just lay my piece out on a towel in the shape that I want to, and I was trying to stretch out the body, so that's what I did. And you just let your piece dry in the sun or under a fan, or just lay it somewhere flat until it is completely dry. If you've used my tutorial, I'd love to see your creations. I'm on Instagram as the same username. You can send me a message, or I don't know, reach out. Or if you've got any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I will try my very best to reply, and I hope you enjoy, and I can't wait to hear or see about your sweaters. I've just come outside to film, and there are 2 kookaburras just chilling on the fence. Can you see them? Yeah.